Hey, everybody. If you're listening to this, you're not just part of the Resistance. You're enlisted as a contributor because this is a members-only exclusive. It's Bi-Mon Sci-Fi Con.
That's right, it's Bi-Mon Sci-Fi Con.
So thank you very much for spending your hard-earned money and your time to be here. This format is a little different because I am doing things with a co-host. My friend Stephanie Kennerly is on board to scratch the sci-fi itch and help steer the ship through the astounding and the absurd. We are leaving the clone zone behind, and in fact, we're leaving the entire galaxy behind as we take on Robert Zemeckis' Contact from 1997. Enjoy. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Bi-Mon Sci-Fi Conversations. I'm joined by my co-pilot on the spaceship to nowhere, Stephanie. Good.
Hey, happy to be here.
Yeah, good afternoon to you.
Happy to be piloting this spaceship because it's important to go nowhere, you know.
It is. You still need somebody at the controls, though, just in case.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, you know, gotta be sure that everything's going smoothly, you know, because you don't want a rough ride to nowhere.
Yeah.
It's gotta be smooth.
You definitely can't trust me at the helm.
Yeah, I knew that the first time I met you.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, today we're sort of veering into better sci-fi movies, like good quality stuff in comparison to maybe the things that we've talked about so far. And this is
How dare you malign our previous films? No, I'm kidding. Yes, I solidly consider this one a good film. This is a 5-star film to me. It has always been one of my favorites.
Well, it is Robert Zemeckis, based on the Carl Sagan novel that I haven't read, but you have, and screenplay by James V. Hart and Michael Goldenberg, and the original story by Andrew Yan and Carl Sagan. So, like you said, this is a important movie for you in sort of like your sci-fi sphere, and it does give me confidence that when I sort of looked back and felt that 1997 was a very good year for my kind of movies, that this is on the list of 1997 films.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what else was out in 97, so I can't comment on that. A bunch. But I have to say this one in particular, you know, it makes the grade for me. I mean, so 97 was quite a few years ago now, but this was one that I saw when it was new. I saw it in the theater, and I remember walking out with this sense of awe, and I still get that feeling every single time I watch it. So that's it pretty much can't get better than that.
That's a nice feeling to have. I sort of had like mixed feelings about this movie when it came out because it's not cut from exactly the same cloth as other sci-fi movies that I tended to like at the time. It's a little bit more heady and doesn't mince words about how it handles its theological undertones and overtones, but you know, it's not exactly like a Star Trek or Star Wars or something where there's a freaking spaceship and you're seeing all this other stuff. You know, this is very much grounded in like kind of how would this happen realistically, and a lot of government red tape that goes along with that. And so it's almost like part courtroom drama, but the courtroom is what, the Senate or the Inquisition at the Capitol building. And then the other part is like, hey, this is some probably close to pretty legitimate science in a lot of ways.
Oh yeah, it's I mean, it's sci-fi definitely because it's a science fiction story, but that's not what it's about. It's about humans and it's about society and how we would handle something like this. And I think it's really realistic, like especially with everything that's gone on, I don't know, in the last like decade or so, it's made clear that just some of the things that they throw out in this movie, like a terrorist attack by extremist groups and like politicians that are more worried about their their numbers, whether their constituents are going to support them if they go through with this this decision to build this machine, and like just the politics and the like it's so complex, and that's one of the reasons why it amazes me so much that it was written by Carl Sagan, an astronomer. Like he he knew people, like he was a genius, and
Yeah.
that just the way he was able to craft this story that wasn't really about what it looks like on the surface, but was such a brilliantly told story for what it actually was about, the humanist story. It's just it's astounding. I could talk about it forever.
Well, we're going to try to limit that to probably 90
That's
minutes
true.
or so. But yeah, it's a rare case of like a science fiction story being written by like a famous scientist, like someone who was very fundamental in American, just like scientific language. And like I didn't even realize that until after the fact. The movie at the end says for Carl, and I was like, Carl Sagan? And then it cuts to, oh, Carl Sagan. So yes, of course, when I watched this, I was a 13-year-old, so I wasn't really thinking about Carl Sagan. But in the subsequent years of my life, I've learned more. And so to sort of learn that and pair it with the kind of movie that this is, it makes a lot more sense than maybe it did when I was a kid, because I'm like, well, I want to see a spaceship with like laser guns. And this is like a sleepy, cerebral sci-fi movie that, even though it's pretty heady, I think rests its head on a pillow of emotions. And I liked it more than I anticipated I would the second time around, because it's like, this is a movie I always knew about. It's a movie that I respected, but never a movie that sort of made it into my personal sort of favorites of the
Mhm.
sci-fi range. So it was nice to go back and watch it again and really sort of take on the themes. And I ended up having a very long conversation on another good movie last night on a friend's podcast, and that sort of got the wheel spinning of like, oh wow, it is a different sort of muscle to flex to talk about a good film versus what I normally do. Because yeah, a lot of the time I'm having fun, and that's perfectly fine, and I really love doing the show, but it is nice to actually talk about a film that is well made and well articulated and sort of true to the nature of the story that spawned it. And honestly, like the theological stuff probably got to me more, and some of the philosophical stuff about the film was much more engaging than any of the sci-fi stuff. So
Mhm.
very weird experience. Almost like this movie is very much like a religious movie at the same time as being a science fiction movie. And I think that probably is what turned me off of it when I was younger, because I couldn't quite reconcile those two things at the same time. And now watching it as an adult, I'm like, oh, wow, I actually do see why this works.
Yeah, so it's funny that you say that, because I can totally see that as a 13-year-old boy, you might not key in on that theological story, but I had the complete opposite experience, partially because of just things that were happening in my life. So I was, almost the same age as you. I was 12 and a half. So I was in the seventh grade, and I was I was actually being bullied because I wasn't Christian. I
Wow.
was I was going through a lot of problems. I'm from the Bible Belt, and like I was being extremely bullied because I didn't believe in God. And then I went to this theater and I saw this movie, and I saw Ellie, who is me, except
Yeah.
for the fact that I'm not a scientist. but like, but I believe in science. And the and the way she had to navigate through all these experiences, and the way she was able to keep kind of her humanity at the same time, and like look at people on opposite sides of the issue, like Palmer Joss, the preacher in the story, played by Matthew McConaughey, and
Hmm.
how she was able to relate to him with like patience and curiosity, and like they could have discussions about it, and that was beautiful to me. And the final message of the movie about how like she ended up having an experience that was very much like his religious experience, but just from a different
Hmm.
angle, and how they ended up like completely understanding each other. I just went through the entire movie here, but the
And we're
point
done.
being, exactly. All right, thanks for listening, but no, the point being, I because of who I was and what I was going through at that point in my life, this movie hit immediately for me. Given that it is definitely, like you said, much more of a humanist story than a sci-fi story.
Yeah, that's interesting. You know, the reason that I remembered the movie was because of the relationship with Ellie and her dad passing away. Like, my
Oh,
dad died when I was 7. So, a few years before this movie came out. And so, like, that aspect of it always stuck in my mind somewhere. Like, the notion that the core of this movie is this journey to like find her father and to reconcile this relationship that sort of ended abruptly, and how science connected her to her dad, and how her going on that journey wasn't just about finding something out in the universe. It was about repairing parts of that lost relationship. Like, the reason that I love movies and the reason that I talk about movies and started a podcast and a website and all that was because my mom was in the industry and she worked for a movie magazine. And so, like, her and I always talked about movies, and she would always give stuff to me to watch and be like, what do you think of this? And we would have like pretty interesting conversations about that. And then when she passed, me being able to be in a place where like I wanted to I still wanted to talk to her about them, but I didn't have that option. So I was like, I need to start writing as if I were talking to her about the things that I've seen. And so that's kind of where all of this stuff started. And so that like emotional sort of anchor point for the whole film is what made me remember it. And so when you brought it up, I was like, okay, I'm interested to go back and watch this because of those reasons, and maybe I'll feel differently about it. And I did feel differently about it. And I do think it actually is a very good sci-fi film. And even though it's probably still not necessarily like the core sci-fi film for me, I think if we were like putting together a list of the most important sci-fi films that were ever made, I could see this definitely being on that list.
yeah, I would agree. And the movie does so brilliantly exactly what Carl Sagan wrote the story for. It's he very much like wanted to, communicate to society at large, the importance of science and the importance of listening to other perspectives and respecting, and that's just, it's an extremely important message, and it's something that you don't always get. I mean, I guess science fiction is a very good genre for that kind of message,
Mm-hmm.
but it's definitely a little more overt in this one than your typical. But I mean, even things like Star Trek, it's embracing other cultures and peaceful exploration and all those kinds of things. But that's really what science is about. That's what science fiction should be about.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably why I like science fiction in general, is because it is very malleable in terms of what kind of stories you want to tell. And you can set something like this, which is very contemporary, and it's like, hey, what would happen if like this happened right now? Right. And so we see that. Or you can go hundreds of years in the future and speculate as to what are the horrible decisions we made now that led us to that future. Like we could get something like Mickey 17 that's coming out pretty soon. That like, look, that's probably my kind of sci-fi, like dark, humorous, little bit into the future, but not so far in the future that it feels like untethered. And but then we can get other kinds of science fiction like Multiplicity. So I think it being such a diverse genre is why I felt it was like a nice bit of fertile soil to take on a show like this, because we really can get into so many different things thematically, emotionally, logically, scientifically, and this is a movie that encompasses a lot of those things. So I feel like we should probably like get into the teeth of the film, right? This is Jodie Foster probably at the height of her 90s power post um Silence of the Lambs. So I like that the movie invested in her as the lead, but then also was like, hey, guess what? Because this is a contemporary film, like you're going to deal with the glass ceiling like the entire movie until there's literally no choice but to like listen to you.
Exactly.
And so like I felt myself wanting her to like stand up for herself throughout the course of the film, like multiple times, because she's in definitely like a male centric, male dominated space, even though she is like the best scientist amongst them. She's the one who actually found the thing. So you should defer to her. And Angela Bassett at one point is like, no, she's going to stay in charge, but then she's still sort of like getting muscled out the rest of the way. But you know, we were sort of introduced to her character as an adult as this person that's brilliant, but wasting their time. And, you know, Drumlin is an asshole in the movie. So, of course, like he's going to make it seem that way. But it's like he also has a point in that she's spending a lot of time chasing this one thing that like the odds of it happening are so low that she might be wasting her brilliance. And I think it's not the main issue of the movie, but it is sort of reflective of this notion, I think, within probably everybody of like, are you doing the thing that fulfills you? And I really like that because in the face of that, in the face of like, you know, being defunded several times, probably knowing that her career is dead on arrival, but she doesn't care because she just wants to do the thing. So it's like she has an artistry in her science, which maybe we don't always see. You know, a lot of mad scientists kind of are tied to the notion that they're insane, right? And so she's not a mad scientist in that she's like not creating monsters in the basement, you know, but she is a little bit of a mad scientist in that she's dedicated her entire life to something that is so low percentage that everybody in her field doesn't believe in her.
She has a religious devotion.
She does.
To her unconventional science, which I love. That she's I will always hear her voice in my head when she screams at Drumlin, "So what? It's my life." And
I
that's
felt that.
Yeah, that's kind of how I've lived my life, and I can't say it's worked out all the time, but it's who I am, and I'm not going to change. So so Ellie is me, you know. It's
I see why this movie is important to you for that reason.
Right?
Right? It's like, you slick suit mustache wearing motherfucker. Like, this is my life. I don't care if you don't like it or not. It's my talent to waste is kind of like an interesting position for her, because you could tell that like she wants the recognition. Like by the time that she discovers it and she's getting pushed out of being part of this thing that is hers, she wants to hang on to it. And she's mad when she gets undercut by Drumlin. And I mean, Tom Skerritt plays this asshole very, very well.
So good.
And he's like so condescending and passive aggressive with the way he's like, oh, you know, like I'm really just kind of like doing this for your best interest. And the way he goes to her before his mission attempt. And he says something like, you know, you and I really kind of just like want the same thing and this world should be fair, but because it's not, I'm an old white man, so fuck you. And I'm just like, man, this dude,
yes,
he plays it so well. And I was like, of course it's, you know, par for the course that who's the best candidate for this? Like some ass kissing white old man in a suit who tells the committee what they want to hear. So as much as I'm not supposed to enjoy it, I'm like, it's kind of fun that he blew up.
Yeah, right. It's true. I mean, like, there is definitely a little bit of that shameful joy there. Like, it's yeah, he earned that explosion.
He
definitely.
did. I'm just like blow his ass up, get him. But like even that scene is sort of like reminiscent of the Challenger explosion that we all saw on television. Whether
that actually happened on my birthday. Yeah.
Oh wow, wow. Yeah,
I mean, it was my first birthday, so it's not like I was watching it, but
right.
But you were only 1.5, so
that's right. I wasn't watching it either. But the fact
my mom
that,
was watching it though.
Yeah, this thing that happened, we ended up watching it again in school. Like, hey, we want to show you this like horrible thing that happened. I'm like, thanks, guys. But yeah, the idea that sort of like the nation was all watching this one massive event to have it like catastrophically fail on national television, and then you have to answer these questions about funding for these kind of projects. Like, is it worthwhile to continue to pursue this when you just so blatantly failed in front of the whole world? And so it's like it goes back to the part of the movie that is very much mired in the government processes. And you know, you cast James Woods for a reason in this as well, because he's very scumbaggy and he's very good at it. So you surround her with those kind of scumbags, and then you give her like a sexy priest boyfriend in McConaughey. And you know,
that's the kind of priest I can get behind.
I mean, yeah, he is kind of like a hippie, and you know, he flirts with her, and he's like, yeah, I couldn't do like the celibacy thing, wink wink.
That's the best part.
Yeah, and then they sleep together.
She's immediately like, you want to get out of here?
Well, I love that the line in this movie is when they say something's a waste of space, that's the panty dropper. He's like, yeah, it'd be an awful waste of space, like let's go right now. But he brings an important sort of like charm to the religious part of the conversation, because you could have gone the role of like zealotry, like we see with Jake Busey's character, right? He could have been the counterpoint where all he's looking to do is be insane about it. And so by getting a guy like McConaughey who's writing a book and he's doing research and he's trying to understand all of the things that go into like really the heart of the investigation and the science, he asks some very, very interesting questions throughout the film where even though I'm on Ellie's side, I definitely pause and I'm like, he's got a point. He's got a point. I don't necessarily agree with his like overall end game, but I do think he's raising some interesting questions.
Yeah, I mean, so in my opinion, Ellie and Joss are like, they're like the ideal for these two opposite segments of society. Like they're both, you know, good people who are patient and understanding and caring. But they just happen to have completely divergent perspectives. But that doesn't stop them from caring about each other and caring about the other person's perspective. So it's more like that's like the message of this is what we should all be doing. And I love that the Palmer Joss character is thrown in there because it's it's not, the story shouldn't just be about science is great and science is scientifically proven and like this is the future and keep going and like move away from mysticism. It's that's in there, but at the same time it's we're all people and you know um there may be aliens, there may be gods, there's no proof of either, all we have is each other. So it's a good message.
It is. It's a beautiful sentiment, and when we first meet Joss, he's asking questions that I feel have aged well, given where we are now. I mean, this is almost 30 years ago, and some of the questions that he's raising about technology, and specifically what he asked her the first time in sort of her research, he's like, "Where's the humanity in what you're doing?" And that just made me think a lot of where AI plays a role in our lives now, and sort of like his notion that like the pursuit of faith and answers is supposed to be like a spiritual journey, like, and supposed to be maybe internal, and it's supposed to be a very like human process. And so how does like listening to like radio signals through a satellite dish, like where's the humanity in that? And so it made me think, because when we look at something like artificial intelligence being applied to art, like there's a huge blowback against that, and I think rightfully so. And there's actually like an independent filmmaker who's made a lot of short films and a couple like features, and I'm been friendly with him, and he's basically pivoted to like selling shit on Instagram, like stuff from Temu, and like, oh, here's how to become like a master filmmaker. Like that's like been the trajectory all of a sudden. And now like he's very much on board with like, oh, hey, AI, like write this scene for me. And so I was like, ugh, that's a
Ouch.
tough, yeah, it's a tough pill to swallow, because with something like artistry, I think part of what makes it worthwhile is that it is an expression of the human experience, and the struggle to go from the emotion to the expression of it like is the point. So when you eliminate that and there's no actual work, then like there's no point to the art, because you're not actually like doing the work anymore. So not that Joss is talking about AI in this movie, but it made me think a lot about it, because his point is more about, even if you had the answers, if you could just like flip a switch and be like, oh, there's a God or not God, right? The importance of that is still going to be an internal journey for each of us. Like if you knew, how would that change how you live? And like, would it make you a less spiritual person or a less kind person or what have you? And so I like that, like, we start very early on with him sort of setting that line in the sand and being like, okay, technology is not necessarily bad, but how it's applied does make a difference. Like context matters.
Yeah. I mean, he has great quotes through the movie. Like there's one that I wrote down. It's when he's being interviewed by like Larry King or something like that on the TV. He says, "We shop at home, we surf the web. At the same time, we feel emptier, lonelier, and more cut off from each other than at any other time in human history." And when I was watching this last night, that really struck me, because I was like, yeah, that was true in 1997, but that is really true now. Like, I mean, we do almost nothing but shop at home. We do almost nothing but surf the web. And the time we spend online seems to be yelling at each other about things that maybe some of them matter and a lot of them don't. And we spend time just putting each other in these boxes and drawing lines. And it's just, yeah, I mean, yeah, technology, has it made everything better? Have we crossed a threshold where it had been making things better and now it's making things worse again? And can we come back from that?
Yeah, and I think I like that he isn't set out to necessarily say that technology is bad. And he makes it a point throughout the film to have that character say that I'm not against technology, but he's like, I have to ask, are we happier as a human race? Is the world fundamentally a better place because of science and technology? And so, like, in hearing him ask the question, I'm like, well, duh, yeah, of course it is. But I'm looking at it from a much different perspective than he is, because science has increased life expectancy and has made death not this thing that happens when we're 30. So
right? I'm 10 years dead now.
Right? Like, so he's like approaching it from a place of like caution, which I actually appreciate from him, because it is an important question to be asked. That I forgot what movie it is, but the quote was like, you were so busy focusing on whether or not you could, you didn't stop to think if
you should.
Yes, exactly.
It was Jurassic Park.
There you go. So look, another great science fiction movie. But that notion right there, and I think there's a reason that kind of idea exists in both stories, both great writers at the core of those as well. So I like that, but I also want to feel like, yes, technology has made things better, but just because technology makes things better doesn't mean like technology has to be or should be in every aspect of our lives.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. We don't need AI tools in every app. And we need the ability to disable them. Please. Gosh, it's terrible. But back to your point about
I didn't
Joss.
ask for this.
Yes. One of my favorite things about his character is he poses questions. He doesn't necessarily offer any sort of answers.
Yeah, that's the best part.
He's just getting people to think about things that maybe they were taking for granted. And that's an extremely important thing to help people do. That so many people just get lost in how things are, and they don't see the possibility of things being different in any way. And to be able to stop and ask, is this good? That's something that not a lot of people are able to do. And most often it seems like people are just so eager to give an answer for everything. And the fact that throughout the entire movie, his character never offers any sort of answer. He just asks a lot of really interesting, probing, thoughtful questions. It's one of the things that makes me like his character, despite the fact that we are on completely opposite sides ideologically.
Yeah, I sort of operate with like a general principle of like, don't trust anybody that tells you they have all the answers, because
100%. Yeah.
Not possible. So if they're selling you that, especially, you probably want to pump the brakes. Well, now that we've sort of made camp, we're set up here, I think we should do the limerick.
I was just thinking that.
You went first last time, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I think you went first both times, so I'll do it this time. Okay. A scientist longed for insight, caught wind of a signal one night. She built a machine to chase the unseen and soared through the cosmos in light.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Thank you.
I love it.
I'm getting better.
I love it.
I'm getting better.
I spent I don't know. It was probably 2.5 hours last night working on my limerick.
Wow.
Because I wanted to basically put every detail of the movie into 5 lines. Turns out can't do that. So I, spent I just kept going back and forth about what things do I want to emphasize, and so here we go. It's not perfect, never going to be perfect, but. Ellie received a message from space with instructions that took her to an alien base. Some humans were glad, while others were mad, and some doubted it ever took place.
I like that.
Yeah, I don't.
She received a message from space that slapped her across the face.
I like it. There we go.
Yeah, just bring some attitude into it.
I actually tried to write one that had something like talking about like the pastor she was screwing, but I couldn't make it work. There were a couple of lines there, but I was like, let's go for funny. Didn't work.
Yeah, I mean, limericks like sort of not always, but sort of kind of in their DNA have like some naughtiness to them.
Yeah,
So,
they should be irreverent, you know.
yeah, I'm overly serious with mine, but it works.
Well, it's a fairly serious movie, so that's kind of the instinct.
I know.
But
I mean, you could have like gone it because it's like it kind of like toys with the idea of like romantic comedies of the era, and then it's like no, like their romance is gonna be not the focal point of this movie. In fact, there's going to be just like huge gaps in time where they don't see or talk to one another. And then when they get together, it's like, yeah, of course, we're so different that we're just drawn to each other with this cosmic magnetism.
one of my favorite things is the little compass from the Cracker Jack box. And I noticed last night that they tended to trade it in situations where the other person needed direction, whether they noticed that or not. But like he leaves it for her when she's moving on from Arecibo to try to establish her program at the Very Large Array, and when he votes for her not to go and like basically sabotages her, she gives it back to him like, you've lost your way here, you know, you need a compass. And then when she's headed off towards the unknown in her trip, he hands it back to her. Here's your compass.
That's a good point. That's a good catch right there.
And it only took me like 70 views.
Yeah, well, you're giving this podcast some direction with that, so I appreciate it. Now I've got a stupid question to bring us back to Earth.
Let's be stupid.
What is a Jansky?
A Jansky. It is it's a scientific unit, actually.
I would assume so.
Okay. I think it's named for an actual person.
Gotcha.
And it's something like the intensity of a radio signal. Yeah. I wish I had like
112 Janskys.
Yeah, it sounds really cool. It's like we're about to go over there, but there's not quite enough Janskys.
Yeah, it's like space jet skis or something like that. That's what I hear when I hear that word. I'm like, what is a Jansky? So, yeah, well, I'm a moron, so that's why.
You are not.
Well, I like dumb things. But, you know, like in the way that the movie progresses, like we get this signal and like they're investigating the signal. Things are beginning to plot out. And then they get the idea that like this is a visual image, right? They get enough information where like this is a visual, and I'm like, they're zooming. I'm like, is that a swastika? Turns out it is a swastika, and I couldn't help but think, man, if Starlink found this signal, like Elon would be so stoked.
Yeah. That was something that occurred to me on this watch as well. That is more timely than it has ever been as well. And you know, the very next scene, basically, where they show everybody camped out around the Very Large Array having a party, and there's the neo-Nazis with the sign that says Hitler lives on Vega, and it's like, yes, that would 100% happen. Ugh.
Yeah, I was kind of caught off guard by how prescient this movie was, because I wasn't like dialed into like socio-political climate or anything like that in 1997, but
you weren't.
Like, I know, shameful, but just like scary to see how little things have changed. But what's that saying? Like the more things change, the more they stay the same.
The more they become the same, yeah. And it's even more astounding when you think of the fact that this novel was written in the 80s. Or like I think it was published in 81.
Wow.
So it's and that is a detail that is in the novel as well. It's like he smart guy, like I said, genius. He saw it all coming.
Yeah, well, I think it points a little bit back to the sort of the technology thing that Joss's character is pointing to the whole time. Like, when we were growing up, because we were less connected, there wasn't like these sort of dark corners of the internet where this kind of stuff could grow. And I mean, I'm sure there was underground stuff going on, but like the fact that you could so easily just like go online and like find a hate group to become part of, and like it spread so quickly because of sort
Hmm.
of like the globalism presented by the internet, and I think especially by social media. And I know that Joss isn't talking about social media when he, speaks in this film, but I think a lot of what he said applies to that. And especially this idea that it's like we're more disconnected, like more lonely, more sad than ever because of being more connected, which is kind of interesting in that sort of at a glance you'd be like, oh, like if the whole world could connect and talk to each other, it would just like solve all of our problems, right? No, the opposite has happened. If anything, like we hate each other more than ever.
Yeah, but to argue the other side, the optimistic side, which is not usually where I land, um, yeah, that definitely has happened. But then there's the possibility for so much good, like you and
There's
I. You're in
Yeah.
California, I'm in North Carolina. We don't actually know each other, but we do. We never would have met if it weren't for technology. And, so what we need is, the technology is not the problem. It's how it's human failing that's the
Yeah.
issue. And that's what we need to address. And, you know, I'm all for that. I want this. I want this experience. I want this social media experience, this internet experience where I get to talk with people halfway across the world about things that are important to me and make friends. And that's kumbaya.
No, I appreciate that, and I agree because I feel like, this is sort of the most positive side of the internet, in that like you can find other people that, do have similar interests, and even if they don't, like you can find people that you can be friendly with and like actual sort of relationship building where sort of the friends that are in my immediate friend group that I've had for like 30 years, like we basically have no common interests anymore. So
Yeah.
it is very weird to sort of go through that. But I've also had through doing the show, I had a friend from grade school just like message the Bad Movies We Love account and was like, hey, dude, can I like recommend you stuff for the show? And I was like, yeah, sure. I mean, fine by me. He's like, just full disclosure, I haven't listened to the show, but like he saw that I was doing it and wanted to like give me ideas. I'm like, yeah, whatever. And but they're doing that. We talked a little bit, and he was like, well, where should I start? And I was just like, well, if you want like one of the popular episodes, go here. But like, I would look for a movie that you actually like that's on the list and go from there. And then he listened to a different episode that I didn't tell him to listen to. And he got back to me and he's like, dude, this is awesome. Like let's talk more. Like, let's do lunch or something. And I was like, oh, like, so I feel like that there is sort of like both things sort of coexisting, and whichever frequency you turn into on the receiver, you could get like the nasty side of things or you could get the good side of things. And I know both of us have gone through sort of seeing a lot of the nastiness on certain platforms that is sort of very much just draining on who we are as people. And it's like, yeah, it's just not really worth my time to invest in that anymore. So I think similarly here with this movie, you can look at what Ellie's doing as something that is very bad, especially if you're like devout religious zealot. And then if you're in the science community, you look at what she's doing as something that is very good. And then if you sort of look at a very like human level, she's kind of like doing this for both sides. And as someone who went to Lutheran school and then Catholic school, so I was in like, yeah, religious school for 8 years, I sort of left thinking a certain way. I was never like, oh, I don't go to church on Sundays. I was never that guy, because my family did not do that. But having the foundation of like reading the Bible in school and learning about the religious figures and sort of having theological discussions and then applying it to just my general enjoyment of science fiction stuff. I like my Catholic high school showed me The Matrix. So in religion
Huh.
class, no less. So it's kind of cool that they took a chance on that, but also it's sort of like got gears turning that weren't otherwise turning. And then looking at a character like Joss, like I totally see where he's coming from because he's not doing it from a place of this like evil self-righteousness. He's not evangelizing and trying to, take money from people. Like granted, like he wrote a book and he probably did a book tour and went on Larry King or whatever the hell it was. He I'm sure is well off because they brought him into like the presidential council on this alien affair, which is a little strange that he just pops up in the room at the time. But I guess that just speaks to like his cultural significance as like a religious leader in the country.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I that's I mean that's a great religious school experience, I would say. And that's I don't know, that's the ideal for religion in from my perspective, like is talking about like what it can mean and how it can apply and that kinds of stuff. Not there's a different undercurrent to religion in my area. And unfortunately, most of the people I know, most of the people I have met who are extremely religious are not in, they don't take it in a good direction. um, yeah. I mean, I have some close friends that are very religious and they're wonderful people and aren't pushy and are very much like Palmer Joss in this movie.
Mm.
Um, but I've known a lot of people who are completely intolerant and dogmatic and literalist and all that kinds of stuff. And I don't even need to go any further into it.
Yeah. I mean, that's tough. And I mean, I guess, we're from different sides of the country, obviously. But, my family has people in it that are sort of very devout in the other direction, like very anti-Christian, very anti-religion, very like proudly atheist, and have like zero tolerance for the other side of things. And I'm like, look, I understand why you're upset, but you're also only pointing to this sort of part of the religious sect that embodies the things that you hate. And like, not all of that is true. And I'm like, I have the benefit of having gone to Lutheran school for 8 years or for 4 years and then Catholic school for another 4 years. So I was not indoctrinated, but like a little bit. I learned, right? I was like, I've probably read more of the Bible than any of you. So the teachings of the Bible are not this thing that like you see out in the world that you're sort of against. But at the same time, I also find myself to be someone who like, I don't begrudge somebody their faith. I understand the need for having a higher purpose, right? The feeling of not wanting to acknowledge that you're alone or not be alone in the universe. Like I understand that. I think everybody's looking for answers, and whether those answers come in the form of sort of faith-based practices, or you rely very heavily and solely on scientific method to find your answers. I think there's just something in human nature that is driving us to look for reason and look for purpose. So I definitely don't begrudge somebody who wants to sort of practice faith for that reason, but how you practice is important. And I think that's true on sort of both sides of the equation. So I feel like I was probably more like Joss in this than I initially wanted to be, because I think Ellie being the main character, like you kind of want to cheer for her. And I think during the mid to late 90s, it was like an okay time to be kind of atheist and like openly so as a main character in a film, the hero in a film, to be atheist is a tough challenge to pull off. And the way that the movie talks about her sort of not representing 95% of the people on the planet is kind of interesting because even if the numbers have skewed a little bit, I'd say it's still probably 90 plus.
Yeah. Yeah. But most of the planet is also stupid. I'm sorry, I'm not saying that religious people are stupid. I'm saying, definitely let me put that disclaimer out there right now. Sorry. No, I'm saying that they didn't necessarily need to pick someone who represents everybody, because there are some things about the average person that you don't want for somebody of that trip. Like,
that's fair.
That's all I'm saying.
No,
I'm a terrible person and everyone hates me.
No. But no, I understand what you're saying. I think specifically because in the last like week or two, I've just like had this weird feeling. I was like, I miss the days of when people who were stupid just knew that they were stupid and deferred to people who actually like took the time to care about the things that these people are ignorant on. And now it's like, I feel like a lot of that is undone, and like sort of ignorance is being worn as like the badge of honor. And it's like, yeah, I don't care that I'm stupid. I just don't want you to be happy. So I'm going to stupid it up. Like, so like pointing back to like, yeah, Ellie, it being okay for her to be a representative of humanity without necessarily having to adhere to a particular dogma, I think it's a key part of her character, but obviously she does not make it through the first round. And then McConaughey and his ding-a-ling, I'm like, yeah, it's like he submarined her. He didn't have to do that. They were ready to confirm her right there as the candidate. And then he's like, well, yeah, but do you believe in God? Because he knew that would torpedo her whole position. And then, of course, it turns out he's like, well, I just wanted you to stay because I'm selfish and I'm human. And it's like, well, yeah, that's the shitty thing, Mr. Preacher. Also,
how'd that work out for you? Did you get the girl?
I mean, kind of, I guess, in the end. Like, they don't get the kiss
in the end, but
end,
only because it all worked out and she got to go. Like, if there had been no second machine, I guarantee you he never would have seen her again.
Yeah.
She was not gonna have a booty call with that dude.
Yeah, right.
Wasn't gonna happen.
Well, because I was like, Joss makes some good points, but it's also probably helpful that like McConaughey just being smooth helps that makes it an easier pill to swallow. But
yes,
in talking about Ellie's candidacy, it got me asking this question that I sort of used to ask myself when I was younger of like, if there was not necessarily an alien invasion, but if it was like we're making first contact with extraterrestrials, which human would you choose to represent humanity to aliens? Who's Earth's ambassador?
Matthew McConaughey. No. I mean, there's no good answer to that question. So, yeah, like it's somebody who's smart enough to have a conversation. Somebody, I don't know, somebody who's thoughtful and patient and intelligent, knows a lot about world affairs, I guess, because they've got to be speaking for more than just whatever little country they're from. I can't give you a name, but those are my personality details.
That's just selection.
That's my resume for you.
Okay. I would honestly, I thought about this a lot, and I've moved off of my previous position. I think this is going to sound crazy. Jackie Chan.
Okay, that does sound crazy, but I'm for it. Go tell me about it.
He speaks multiple languages. He's cross-cultural. He is a very smart, thoughtful person. I wouldn't put the burden of like global affairs on his shoulders, like as the ambassador of the human race, but he seems like a genuinely kind, caring, thoughtful person who's done some insane things to his body in the name of the pursuit of his like sort of life's goals. And I think he would be a very sort of interesting person for aliens to talk to that might get them to not murder us all.
Yeah, there's an argument to be made that an actor is a good choice because even if they're scared or angry or whatever they might be feeling, they could at least act a different way, if they think that a different message needs to be sent or a different face needs to be presented. So I don't know, maybe an actor is the way to go. And
yeah, not too good
I
of an
don't know.
actor, not Adrian Brody.
Okay. Yeah, he might, talk a lot.
Yeah, the aliens are leaving because Brody is still talking. They're on their way back to their planet. I just figured like I had to ask this question in conversation because I thought about it in the past and I really wanted to sort of speculate on what would make a good ambassador. Obviously, like probably a lot of astronauts, scientists, world leaders, like politicians would probably be throwing their hat in the ring for that kind of thing. But I don't really want any of those people
No,
to do
I would
it.
not.
I want
would not
somebody
be my
who
choice.
doesn't want to do it. To
Yes,
be the
that's a
person.
good, yeah. Somebody who looks at it as a important responsibility, like rather than some giant honor that they're owed. That's which is that's kind of like how Drumlin versus Ellie looked at the trip through the machine in this movie. Drumlin's very much like it should be me. I have been the science advisor for a long time. I used to be her boss. I ran this project at one point. I've earned it. Whereas Ellie's like, well, she also sort of thinks it's that she deserves it, but she does see it, I think, as the momentous responsibility that it is. It's not a vanity thing for her. And if she thinks that she's owed it, it's just because she spent her entire life in pursuit of it.
Yeah, it's not vanity for her in the way that it is for Drummond, but it is a little bit in the sense that it's like it's her project, her discovery. She wants to be the one. Like, she's dedicated her whole life to finding extraterrestrial intelligence and she finally found it, and of course she wants to be the one. I totally get that. But I'm going to ask you now, like, knowing that there's a good chance that it's a suicide mission, which she seems to be pretty okay with. You said Ellie is you, so do you go on the suicide mission to wherever?
Without hesitation. Yeah. I'm sorry. Like, I mean, yeah. Funny thing around this time of this movie, I think before this movie, I used to imagine that aliens would come and take me away to their planet because I was so enlightened. I don't know. Unlike most of the people around me, I was like a higher intelligence because I didn't buy into this collective delusion. Anyway, but yes, I would go. I would totally go. Whether aliens come and snatch me up or whether there's a machine with a one-way ticket to an unknown world, I would be there.
My friend's sister is, well, she was, I think, at one point, sort of like, I don't know. I don't even know if it's true because she seems kind of like, but this idea that like she worked with the FBI on like lie detection techniques in interrogation. And she asked me once, it was at my friend's like wedding, not the wedding itself, but the night before the wedding, we were like bowling. And she's like, all right, well, like if you could do anything in the world, what would you want to do? And you can't lie because I will know. And so I thought about it. And I was like, you know what? Space exploration would be the thing. And so if I was going to be like an astronaut, I was like, mostly I was envisioning like Star Trek. I'd love to be on the Enterprise and just going around to foreign planets and getting to wear snazzy uniforms and, hanging out on the holodeck and stuff, talking to aliens. I was like, that's
Saying
kind
things like "make it so."
right. Yeah. So, I mean, I'd probably never be that high ranking, but maybe one day I could be the captain of one of those ships. But the idea that really sort of venturing off into the unknown was something that was like super appealing. And now, like, I don't know that I would take a one-way ticket. Probably not. I'd be like that astronaut who it's like, well, Daddy, we don't
Yeah.
want you to leave. Be like, all right, well, I guess I'm staying home. Like, I would probably still want to work in like, what's it, Mission Command. But like, all right, I want to be involved in the project, but I don't necessarily want to be the first person to jump into the interstellar gateway.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, you've got a lot of things going on in life. Me not so much at the moment. So not, there are a couple people I would miss, but in the end, I'd be. I got no problem. I got no problem taking the big leap into the giant abyss of unknown and wormholes.
Well, the good news is that you'd only be gone for a half a second. So
That's true. In
yeah,
the
you'd
end,
be back.
it would work out. But then everybody would doubt me and I'd have to talk to Congress, and I'm not sure about all that.
Yeah. Who wants to talk to Congress these days?
Nobody.
Yeah.
Nobody.
I think one of the funny things about this movie that was sort of like on accident was like, this is 1997. So this is pre sort of like the vegan consciousness in the United States, at least like on a large scale. But the way that it is written in the subtitles throughout the movie is just like, the vegans are going to get you. Well, what if a whole vegan army comes through the portal? And I'm just like, oh, yeah, that would be annoying. All right.
It sure would be annoying. That is so funny.
The vegans are gonna. I'm like, really? That's what you came up with? I was like, I get it. It was like it was before. Had this movie been made now, they'd definitely be like, well, we can't do Vega. We'll do someplace else because we don't want to open ourselves up to that. But yeah, if you're like hearing impaired and you're just reading it and you're like, what the hell? Like, there's an army of vegans coming to get us. We're all going vegan. Yeah, contact's not good. Like,
Oh, that's too funny.
yeah, it was just like I wanted to be able to sort of see everything in text without having to like crank the volume up. Um, but little just like unintentional comedy that I did appreciate though.
Yeah, there is a lot being said, and if you haven't watched the film in a while, I can understand wanting to have the subtitles on because you'd probably miss some stuff otherwise because it just goes back and forth so fast, which is kind of necessary to cram all the details of finding the message and decoding it and stuff into just a 2.5 hour film. So yeah, like I said, I've seen this movie like 70 times, so
Wow.
I don't necessarily need to read anything in order to know exactly what they're saying. I tend to have the words in my head.
When I saw it last night, I had to rent it again, so I gave Contact $4. You're welcome, Robert Zemeckis. I saw that it was 2.5 hours. I was like, you know what? One of the things I remember about this movie is that it was really long. So I was like, okay, I think I can make it. And then around the hour mark, it was like, nope, I'm getting sleepy. So I turned it off. My dog got me up this morning, like on the dot at 7. It's like, reminder, you have this movie to watch. And I finished it, and I feel like I was better for it than trying to like power through when I was sleepy. But we talked about 1997 being a particularly good year, especially for like sci-fi stuff that I like. But one of the other ones that came out in 97 was Event Horizon, which also uses a gyroscopic device as this machine to transport you between worlds. And they both actually are essentially black hole generators. But I know that that's not expressly said, but I think that like if you just watch Contact, you read between the lines. That's kind of what it is. But I really like the design of that machine. Aside from the fact that it's like we just got to time the drop perfectly so that the pod that falls through never hits any of the spinning bars, even though one of them is rocket propelled to make it go fast enough to create the energy that we need. So I'm like, this seems like a little dangerous of like an alien design.
That is a very good point. And it did not occur to me because they're also I mean it's not like it's something pre-programmed in from startup of the machine. It's going to drop at this particular point. They push a button to do it. So, yeah, it seems likely that that would not have worked. Yeah, they should probably have set it up to just go.
Well, yeah, if it's alien tech and they're just giving you the blueprints, like are aliens really like is this their design just for people? Or is this like how they get around as well? And like we don't get into that too much, but she does go through a wormhole. I feel like when I was younger, the movie was asking me whether or not to believe her. And she has to concede things as a scientist that, yeah, it's possible that she got out of her chair and she had a head injury because
Mhm.
she got jostled around in there. It's possible that she hallucinated all of it. All those things are possible, but I feel a lot more confident watching it this time that it actually did happen. And I know James Woods is an asshole, and I know that the people that are detractors of the project are all basically assholes, and I think there's something weighing them down that makes them want to disprove her rather than believe her. But Joss still in the end is like I know her to be a person of good character, and I don't doubt that she is telling the truth. And so I feel like that was important because it even takes someone who's probably like the most religiously adept person in the film and puts him on her side where the government really sort of wants to sort of like tongue in cheek. And then, you get the flipping through the dossier of like, oh, well, it recorded 18 hours of nothing. So it's like, well, how did that happen in a half second, James Woods, you prick?
Exactly. Yeah, I think the film does a good job of putting that on your shoulders for a little while and making you question yourself and how you feel about things before removing all doubt and saying, "Nope, it actually did happen. Haha. You were thinking she was hallucinating, but you're wrong."
Yeah, and what do you what do you think of sort of the presentation of what she does see?
I think it's gorgeous. I'm one of my thoughts was that was very sad that they don't have a 4K release for this yet.
Mhm.
All the astronomy, but in terms of like practically, like I mean, it all makes a lot of sense. Like, so she goes through the wormhole and she emerges at Vega, which we find out is not the home of the vegans of whoever's sending the message, but there's a radio telescope array in orbit around Vega that's where the message was coming from. And then she goes through another wormhole and she basically they took her like on a tour of the universe, like here's a bunch of beautiful things. Like here, why don't you cry in front of this accretion of a new solar system around a primordial star, like, and then why don't you get shuttled off to this other place with a bunch of stars in the same system, and like it's sort of like they're, I don't know, rewarding her for her faith in the project and saying, here's a couple things we can show you. It's like when you have somebody over to your hometown, you take them to the interesting places, and then you come home and sit down and have a meal and chat. And I feel like that's kind of what they did. Um, and in terms of how they presented the Pensacola, that
Right.
how they crafted that whole scenario to make her feel more comfortable or something. That's probably fair. I think Ellie could have handled something a little more in her face, abstract alien. Um, but some people wouldn't have been able to. So, as a general rule book for new visitors to the to the intergalactic, consortium of alien nations, that being the procedure, that seems solid to me.
Yeah, I I couldn't help but think like, my goodness, I would have vomited inside the wormhole tunnels because it's pretty intense.
Well, it's only intense because they have her in a chair,
Oh,
if
that's true.
which
Yeah.
it wasn't supposed to be in there. And I love how the engineers were like, the design impact is negligible. It's like, dude, you don't even know what the machine's gonna do. You don't know if the design impact is negligible, and it turns out it's not. But yeah, so I mean, I think that if she weren't in a chair, she would just be floating, uh, in a completely relaxed way, watching all the beauty around her.
Yeah, that's a good point. I know you had something that you wanted to share with the class
Ah,
since we
yes,
were
it
talking
would
about it.
be my absolute favorite quotes, quote, quote stream from the film.
When we
This
arrive at
is,
that beach in Pensacola, at first
yeah,
I'm just like, oh, Vega got the nicest beaches in the galaxy. Like, okay, well, I could understand. You take all your visitors here, it looks amazing.
exactly. Yeah. So, Ellie's talking to the alien who's not her father, but looks like her father. And he has some brilliant insights about the world. Any minute now.
You're an interesting species. An interesting mix. You're capable of such beautiful dreams. And such horrible nightmares. You feel so lost. So cut off. So alone. Only you're not. See, in all our searching, the only thing we've found that makes the emptiness bearable is each other.
The only thing we found that makes the emptiness bearable is each other. I support that.
Very sweet. I actually put that in my notes too because I was like, it's a very beautiful sentiment. Like, not just at this point in the movie, but I think in terms of just like living on the planet together as a species, to go through the process of discovering the signal, decoding the signal, building the machine, venturing to meet the alien civilization, to get all the way there and just find out that they're just like us, that there's something bigger out there than them and they don't have the answers to it, and they're looking for answers too. But in the meantime, the only thing that's actually meaningful in existence is like talking and like engaging with other people. So kind of an interesting bow to put on a movie that is so sci-fi forward or so invested in the notion of her search for extraterrestrial intelligence, because even though she finds it, and in some circles, in maybe in reality, if we were to find aliens, that would be the confirmation that there is in fact not a god for some people. But in this context, that doesn't end that conversation. And even the aliens that she meets, like, I don't know, maybe there's some shit out there that we don't even understand yet. So I feel like it does marry notions of sort of scientific and theological aspirations at the end. So that's probably why her and McConaughey are the two characters that sort of define those two positions for us throughout the film.
Yeah. I mean, I love wow, whatever thought I had just completely went out the window. Oh, I was gonna say I love the ending and how gentle it is. I think a lot of people might have been unsatisfied with the fact that she goes there and all she gets is an alien dude saying, "Hi, it's nice to meet you. We'll hang out again someday." And then there's not even a date made for what they're going to do next, you know? So I think some people are like, "Well, but but it's a very gentle ending."
Yeah.
It's like, "Don't worry, more will come. You just have to believe this is what's important. We don't have the answers, like you said. We don't have the answers, but what's important is that we are all asking the questions together." And I like the ending a lot. Hardcore sci-fi people might feel a little cheated by it. And I feel like that might be something I've heard bemoaned before.
Well, this movie only has a 62 Metascore, so critics definitely were not as not as much in lockstep as I think audiences, but it's got a 7.5 IMDb, which is probably pretty true if we were to look at Letterboxd. It's probably like a 3+ range. But you look at the tags and it's like psychological drama, psychological thriller being
Okay.
sort of, or, yeah, not so much. Theological thriller maybe. But I see what you're saying about sort of like the dissatisfaction with the ending. Like you go through all this to like not even really see an alien. You do get a quick glimpse of the homeworld of the vegans.
Yes.
And it's very technologically savvy. You're flying in, see all the lights on. So I think like you do get just enough of that. And it actually reminds me of older sci-fi films like maybe like The Abyss that deals with
God, I love The Abyss.
Yeah. We'll do that one on a future episode for sure. I love that movie. But that one sort of handles like, okay, you get to see like an actual alien, but for the most part, like it is handled very gently. I think the thing for me, I actually liked sort of that ending, like the alien resolution part. The part where she has to go back in front of like the committee in the Capitol again. I feel like that maybe disappointed me a little bit, only in the sense that I feel like there was a great analogy about faith that was like right there for her that she's been grappling with the entire time and just like chooses to not slap James Woods' arrogant ass in the face with it. And I'm like, she just didn't like stand up for herself really throughout the whole movie. And I really wanted her to in that moment.
What would you have preferred she say?
Well, because the way that the conversation goes is like they're kind of bullying her into this notion that like, oh, you want us to like just take you at your word, right? And I know that her position on religion, like she's not like super anti-religion, right? She never like makes that a point to be about her character. But the fact that she has spent a lot of time talking to McConaughey's character and she's read his book, I think at this point, I think it would have just been easy for her to sort of contextualize the things that they're accusing her of as being very sort of congruent with the practices of faith that she was accused for like not adhering to.
Well, I think she wouldn't have wanted to use that as any sort of argument for being right, because she doesn't think anyone on the other side has a right to use that as an argument for being right.
It's fair.
It's all about what you believe, you know? And she has this experience that in so many ways parallels, you know, like a religious
Yeah, very
experience.
much so.
But she's not going to say, you know, that I don't know. I don't know how to I don't know how to articulate it. But just basically that like she's willing to admit this is personal to me. This is something I went through. And because I went through it, I believe it and I feel it. And I wish everyone else could feel it too. But I can't make you feel it just by telling you what I went through. And I love how she keeps looking over at Palmer Joss during that because she's like it's suddenly hitting her
Yeah.
that this is exactly, you know, his experience, that it just it's a beautiful, like I hate, you know, the whole her having to argue in front of Congress.
Yeah.
It's emotionally abhorrent to me, but I love the situation that is created in the film and that moment between those two characters.
Yeah, I guess I think what I would have liked to hear from her in that aspect is like, yes, I can acknowledge that this may have been a hallucination. Yes, you know, I can acknowledge what's on the video. Yes, I can acknowledge all these things like as a scientist. But what I'm asking from you is to have faith, which sort of like brings her back fully around.
Yeah, but she can't ask that. She would never take someone's word for something that she didn't have evidence for. And so she would never ask anyone else to do that because that's just who she is. And I love that she doesn't change who she is. She has this experience that changes her in some ways, but in this at the same time she doesn't violate her principles.
Yeah, that's a good point. She just, you know, she still leaves with McConaughey, so he's like, "Don't worry, I'll do that for her.
Exactly.
I'll be her representative of faith."
And I like that. And I like how when they, you know, things seem so frustrating and dire when she's there testifying, but when she walks outside and, you know, the streets are filled with people with signs saying,
Yeah.
you know, we love you and Ellie discovered the new world, and it's this extremely positive view of humanity, which unfortunately I don't think that's how it would be in real life. But in this movie, we get to have our happy ending. And even though the government is stupid and hides evidence to make everybody think that it's a hoax, there's still a large percentage of the world that are positively affected by what happened and believe in what happened and the goodness of it.
I mean, the government would definitely hide that evidence and make her look like she's crazy. For sure. They wouldn't even
Oh yeah.
hesitate.
Yeah.
And I think what makes it tangible is that like it's actually probably in her best interest to pretend that she saw what she saw because she is a scientist that has been pursuing this for so long that like if she wants to continue to work in this field and get government grants and all that, like it actually benefits her to be like, yeah, I went to another planet and you just have to take my word for it. So I could see that faced with that, she doesn't want to sort of concede that only listening to her is the right way. And like I said, I don't even know if we were recording yet or not when I said this, but like never trust anybody that says they have all the answers. So by that logic right there, if she were to come out and be like, no, you just have to trust me and I saw all these things and I'm telling you the truth and you guys are stupid and whatever, like it's just going to make her look worse. And I think, you know, that the symbolism at the end of everybody being there to actually like support her and listen to the hearings, I think shows that her character, I think, is proven to be above reproach by the time that the film comes to its
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
Yeah, she absolutely her willingness to concede that there's a possibility that it didn't happen definitely is a positive to her credibility. 100%.
Yeah, I just hate James Woods so much. I would have liked her to
Oh,
be like,
sure.
"Fuck you, sir. You don't
Yes.
know what you're talking about. Your head is in your ass."
He's so terribly slimy in this movie. And that leads into comment on how amazing this whole cast is.
I know, right?
There's so many great people, and they just keep showing up, and even in smaller roles, and like it's crazy. It's crazy. I love it.
Yeah, you get a very, very young Jenna Malone
Yes.
playing young Ellie, right? I completely forgot about that. Tom Skerritt, obviously, who we've talked about, is a brilliant douchebag as Drumlin. David Morse, who plays her father, very good actor. I would have liked him more in the movie, but I mean, he just can't be there for obvious reasons. Um, John Hurt is a great actor, very interesting character in the film in that he's almost like a James Bond villain, but
That's
we don't know if he's like a
he's
good
got
guy or
that
a bad
look.
guy.
Yeah.
He does, and he's wearing like a crushed velvet, like a red velvet suit when he meets her, like in his weird basement to just like tell her that he's got the secret that she's looking for. And they use him as a scapegoat. And I like that James Woods' character so aptly fumbles the sort of metaphor of Occam's razor. And that I was like, wait a
Yeah.
second, you actually think it's more likely that the scenario that you're laying out is the simplest one?
Yeah.
I was like, based on everything you just said, I believe her because you're being ridiculous. But yeah, he's a great slimeball. Larry King obviously steps in and plays himself briefly. William Fichtner, who's Kent, he's great in a lot of different roles, such a versatile character actor. And of course, Matthew McConaughey, Jodie Foster
Yeah.
are both very good in this. And it was like sort of before McConaughey became the guy that he is now.
Before the reconnaissance.
Yes, before the McConaissance. But in watching this, I'm like, so Christopher Nolan definitely watched this and decided to like take this person and make them the lead of like kind of similar
Yes,
sci-fi
there are.
epic.
I agree. There are some similarities, definitely. The and I can't even like articulate them beyond the idea of them traveling through a wormhole. Like for some reason, it feels like they're cousins. These films are cousins, but I was trying to like lay out details the other last night as to why, and I can't even pin it down. But
They definitely feel like they're in the same family, but I think for me, maybe the connective tissue is that while they are both stories that take us like as physically far away from Earth as imaginable, they both come back to a very emotional center that is inescapable, like at home. So they're both like looking way, way out into the cosmos, looking for answers at like a very fundamental human level. And then even when you get all the way to the end and you're like, oh my God, like here's the answer is that it was always back where I started from. And I think
that's a
that's the kind of thing that connects them.
that's a good analysis. Yeah, definitely.
So, I mean, I think probably we've covered most of our bases. Is there anything that you really wanted to mention before we wrap up?
Oh, I was gonna say another film that very much reminds me of this one, or feels like it's in the same vein, is Arrival.
Yeah, for sure.
It's the whole message from aliens uniting the human race, kind of, and 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 in this film, it's a little more America centric, but the novel is very international. Like there's a lot more about the world working together. Just a little side note there.
Yeah, I think that those are probably Interstellar and Arrival are the two movies that I think are probably most directly in the orbit of Contact and probably took a lot of influences from Contact as well. I think Arrival also deals with that same notion of like this extraterrestrial being like posed to answer these questions, and then it's kind of just really about the personal relationship of this character or these characters, and using that sort of like long distance telescope to be like, we're going to look as far away as possible, and what we find is that it's a mirror and it's just reflecting back on us. I think there's a poetry in that, and I love that Jodie Foster's character in that moment where she like sees the cosmos, she's like, oh shit, they should have sent a poet. They shouldn't have sent me, because like I don't have the language to like articulate what I'm seeing, and sort of just like being aware of her own shortcomings in that moment. Not that it's like a knock on her, but like having the presence of mind to be like, I wish that somebody with a better way to explain this could be here to do so, because it is just that amazing. And so I've been oscillating between my choices for what we're going to do next, because obviously like Contact it's a smart film. It's based on smart material. I think it has its place in like the upper echelon of like great sci-fi films. And so part of me was like, well, yeah, we should probably do Arrival or Interstellar, right? Because those are great sort of companion films. And then there's the other part of me that's like, don't do that.
The two on your shoulder,
oh, the devil
whispering in your ear,
definitely wins. So my first actual pick, when you picked Contact, I was like, I have one that's ready to go, that's in the chamber for this, and it's not Arrival, it's The Arrival from 1996.
Oh, okay, yeah, okay. Sorry, I didn't mean to scream.
With Charlie Sheen. And then there's another one that I was like, maybe we do this. It's a little bit newer. It's The Signal, but I think I want to do The Arrival because I haven't seen it in a long time.
I haven't either. It's and I have good memories of it.
Yeah, it's definitely a sort of bad movies we love kind of movie, but
it also involves a radio telescope array, so that's a perfect little
that's what got tie-in. The other one I was thinking of was, I think it's Frequency. Dennis Quaid.
I love Frequency, yeah. Dennis Quaid and Jim Caviezel.
Yeah, that's right. So I was like, yeah, they're listening to like, there's a hidden signal. I was like, that kind of like lands in a similar territory. But with The Arrival being a year before Contact, I think it's the right like flavor of dumb kind of sci-fi. It's like, it's not even dumb. It's just, I don't think it's a great movie, especially not in comparison to Contact. But if we don't talk about it now, I feel like we probably never will. So I can shoehorn my way back into those other movies that I was thinking
there we
of,
go.
where this one is either like now or never.
I like it. I'm in favor of The Arrival with Charlie Sheen.
Yeah. Well, we'll see if you still maintain that position after we rewatch it, because it has been quite some time since I've seen this, but I had seen it many times right around the first time it came out.
Yeah, I feel like it's one of those that I watched in pieces over and over when it was on like HBO or TNT or something like that.
Exactly. So I'm going to try to keep my own sort of like running tally of the movies that I do want to cover, but I also want to be more flexible, because this would have never made the like original list of movies. But because you picked Contact, I was like, no, this is the chance I have to go back and see a very sweaty Charlie Sheen and these aliens with their backwards knees.
Yes, there is sometimes a downside to showing the alien.
Yeah, definitely. So I think we'll have fun with that, and it'll be like a good sort of crash landing after Contact.
I'm for it.
Not sure what that was. Well, it's been a pleasure, as always. For the people that actually decide to make the journey and listen to this, I hope that you are entertained, and if not, then sorry about that, but
we did our best.
We did our best, and you've already paid me to listen to it, so yeah, sorry, no refunds. We'll get together again probably in a week or two, and we'll do The Arrival, and I'm looking forward to the next one.
Yes, we've got it.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you, Stephanie.
Thank you very much, Nick.
Yeah, and I'll see you next time.
All right, see ya.
Thank you for listening to the show, and thank you for supporting us in this endeavor. And a big thank you to Stephanie for agreeing to be my co-pilot on the spaceship to nowhere. As you may have guessed by the title of the show, the plan is to get 2 of these episodes done per month, but the intervals will probably shift slightly to accommodate both of our schedules. I got dibs on the next one, and I decided to bring us back down to Earth with something a little more in line with the bad movies we love spirit. We're going to be talking David Tui's The Arrival from 1996, and hopefully you'll be there with us once again. So, until next time, be good, do good, watch movies, take care.
Mr. Pop. Eat.